Please welcome to the stage accountant leader Intuit QuickBooks, Arish Mashergi.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the main stage. We are back for our final session. And I have to say, I don't understand how it is that after 2.5 days of super powerful sessions and an awesome party in between, there still seems to be the same level of energy, if not more today than there was on Monday. Thank you for bringing your energy and your passion here to QuickBooks Connect. I am inspired by you. I shared a car with Sharon, a bookkeeper from Florida, and her husband yesterday morning on our way to the convention. And Sharon told me that she had just gotten a new lead from Find a Pro Advisor. Sharon, I hope you make a lasting connection. I also hung out with Melanie, a bookkeeper and a master's student at San Jose State. She doesn't know I'm calling her out. She works with her mom as a bookkeeper, and she's writing a thesis for school. And she's circling still kind of around what she wants that topic of the thesis to be, but she's considering a thesis on the evolution of bookkeepers and perhaps how gender has played a role in that evolution. She had a paper due at 6 p.m. on Monday, and we were still in really intense conversation at 4:30. So I'm sorry, and I hope you got your paper in on time. I have experienced connection myself here at QuickBooks Connect, and I've witnessed connections being made right in front of my eyes. I hope you found your tribe here. Yesterday, Sasan announced the winner of our App Showdown. Developers from around the globe participated in a contest for $100,000 for creating an application that works with QuickBooks and solves an important customer problem. The submissions were awesome, and Sasan announced the winner, an app called Give that helps small businesses donate 1% of their revenue to a charity of their choice through QuickBooks. I want to congratulate Regis Malloy and the whole Give team. What you're doing is formidable. And in addition to getting your team those cheeseburgers you talked about yesterday, I really hope that you use that $100,000 to accelerate your mission. We have a great final session planned and a surprise before we officially send you off. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our guest for the afternoon, Alex Banayan. Alex's story is one of perseverance. His rise to success all started the day before his freshman year's final exams, where many of us might have been studying. Alex ended up on a game show. Oddly enough, this was also his springboard to start a wild journey to meet the world's most influential people of business and pop culture. From Bill Gates to Warren Buffett to Oprah Winfrey to Lady Gaga, his quest to find out how they broke into their careers. He compiled all the data that he acquired into a national best-selling book called The Third Door. Since then, Alex has become a leader in business and a venture capitalist. He's been recognized as Forbes' top 30 under 30 business leaders and Business Insider's most powerful people under 30, among other accolades. Please welcome to the stage, Alex Banayan.
Let's give her a round of applause one more time. Thank you so much. For the past 7 years, I've been obsessively studying success. I've spent thousands of hours researching, going through hundreds of biographies, and more importantly, sitting down one-on-one, asking questions to the people I was dying to get answers from. So for business, I spoke to Bill Gates. For music, Lady Gaga. Science, Jane Goodall. Poetry, Maya Angelou. Quincy Jones, Jessica Alba, Larry King, Steve Wozniak. It's been this unbelievable journey filled with surprising lessons at every turn. And what I want to do with you guys today, since it is the closing day, I really want to go over the origin of how this all got started and share some of the biggest lessons that we can take, not back not only into our personal lives, but really back into our businesses. So to take you to the start of the journey, I have to take you back 7 years. I was 18 years old, a freshman in college, and I was spending every day lying on my dorm room bed, staring up at the ceiling. And I don't know if you guys have ever gone through the what do I want to do with my life crisis. Actually, so I can get a sense of the room, because I know this is a really professional group, by show of hands, who's gone through, or maybe who's going through, the what do I want to do with my life crisis? And give me full arms. Okay, amazing. We have like 98% of the room, and one person in the back is like, me, I'm going in it. I love you. You're my brother. I feel you. So, I'm going through this what I want to do with my life crisis, and to understand why I'm going through it, you have to understand that I'm the son of Persian immigrants, which pretty much means I came out of the womb, my mom cradled me in her arms, and then she stamped MD on my ass and sent me on my way. And you think it's funny, but in 3rd grade, I wore scrubs to school for Halloween and thought I was cool. I was that kid growing up. And, in high school, I checked all the boxes. I studied for the SATs, I took all the biology classes, I went to pre-med summer camp. And by the time I get to college, you think it's funny, but mothers normally put finger paintings on the refrigerator when their kids are young. When I was in kindergarten, my mom put skeleton charts. So, that was my upbringing. And, by the time I get to college, I am the pre-med of pre-meds. But very quickly, I remember lying on my dorm room bed, looking at this towering stack of biology books, feeling like they're sucking the life out of me. And at first, I assume I'm just being lazy. But very quickly, I began to wonder, maybe I'm not on my path. Maybe I'm on a path somebody placed me on and I'm just rolling down. So now not only do I not know what I want to do with my life, I have no idea how all the people who I looked up to, how they did it. How did Bill Gates sell his first piece of software out of his dorm room when nobody knew his name? Or how did Lady Gaga get her first record deal without a single hit under her belt? This is what they don't teach you in school. So I just assumed there had to be an answer out there. So I'm, going to the library and I'm just ripping through business books and biographies and self-help books, assuming there has to be a book with the answer. But eventually, I was left empty-handed. And that's when my naive 18-year-old thinking kicked in, and I thought, well, if no one's written the book I'm dreaming of reading, why not write it myself? I thought it'd be super simple. I would just call up Bill Gates, interview him, interview everybody else, and I'll be done in a few months. That, I assumed, would be the easy part. The hard part, I figured, was getting the money to fund this journey. I was buried in student loan debt. I was all out of bar mitzvah cash. So there had to be a way to make some quick money. So 2 nights before final exams, I'm in the library doing what everyone's doing in the library right before finals. I'm on Facebook. And I'm on Facebook, and I see someone offering free tickets to The Price is Right. And again, so I can get a feel for the room. By the show of hands, who here grew up watching The Price is Right? Give me full arms all the way. Amazing. Okay, we got Bob Barker fans over here. And so I'm in the library, and I see someone offering free tickets to The Price is Right. And at first, I'm going to USC, not too far away from where the show is filming. My first thought is, what if I go on the show and win some money to fund this book? Not my brightest moment. And I know we're in the room with financial professionals, so it's really not my brightest moment. And I realize, it's a stupid idea. I have finals in 2 days. Plus, I'd never seen a full episode of the show before. I'd seen bits and pieces when I was in 4th grade homesick from school, but I'd never seen a full episode of the show before. I told myself it's a dumb idea and to not think about it, but I don't know if you guys have ever had one of these moments where an idea just keeps clawing itself back into your mind over and over again. So to prove to myself it's a bad idea, I remember sitting in the library. I'm at this little round corner table in the corner of the library, and I open up my spiral notebook, and I write best and worst case scenarios, to prove to myself it's a bad idea. And it's worst case scenarios. fail finals, get kicked out of pre-med, lose financial aid, mom stops talking to me, no, mom kills me. There's like 20 cons. And the only pro was maybe win enough money to fund this dream. And it felt as if somebody had tied a rope around my gut and was slowly pulling in a direction. So that night, I decided to do the logical thing and pull an all-nighter to study. But I didn't study for finals. I studied how to hack The Price is Right. And I go on the show the next day and execute this ridiculous strategy, and I ended up winning the whole showcase showdown, winning a sailboat, selling the sailboat, and that's how I funded the book. Thank you so much. And it was this unbelievable adventure. Once I have the sailboat money, I have all this money in my hand. I feel like a young, a millionaire. Even though I'm back on my college campus, I'm taking all my friends out to lunch at Chipotle. I'm like, free guacamole for everybody. I'm a billionaire now in my mind. I have all this money, and I decide to take it to go on this adventure. And it takes 2 years to track down Bill Gates. It takes 3 years to track down Lady Gaga. And when I had started this journey, first of all, I had no idea it would take 7 years to come to fruition. And when I had started, there was no part of me that wanted to find that one key to success. We've all seen those business books or those TED Talks, and normally I just roll my eyes. But what ended up happening is that over these 7 years, I started hearing, to me, I don't know if any of you are big music fans, but it was almost like there was a common melody in every single conversation I was having, every interview. And to me, the analogy that came to me is that every single person, doesn't matter if it was Maya Angelou for poetry or Steve Wozniak for computer science, they all treated life and business and success the exact same way. And it was sort of like getting into a nightclub. There's always 3 ways in. So there's the first door, the main entrance, where the line curves around the block, where 99% of people wait in line hoping to get in. That's where people just stand there hoping the bouncer picks them and calls them in. And then there's the second door, the VIP entrance, where the billionaires and celebrities go through. And for some reason, society has this way of making us feel like those are the only 2 ways in. You're either born into it or you wait your turn like everybody else. But what I've learned is that there's always the third door. And it's the entrance where you jump out of line, run down an alley, bang on the door 100 times, crack open the window, go through the kitchen. There's always a way in. And it doesn't matter if that's how Bill Gates sold his first piece of software or how Spielberg became the youngest director in Hollywood history. They all took the third door. Now, if there's one thing that I can really share with you guys today is that when I had started this journey, I had a huge misconception that I didn't know I even had. When I had started this journey, I thought there just had to be an essence of fearlessness in all of these people. You look at Bill Gates or you look at Elon Musk, they had to be fearless. And, something you have to understand about me, when I was young, I was one of the most scared kids you would ever meet. I had a nightlight on until I was 12. Whenever I would go to roller coasters with my friends, I'm always the one in the picture like screaming like this. And I actually remember the first time I ever felt this. It was, I call it the flinch. And it's almost this internal being inside of me that was one of the biggest obstacles of this whole journey. The first time I remember feeling the flinch, I was in 3rd grade, and I walked into the elementary school cafeteria, and there's, all these big rows of tables, and I'm sitting down there, and, to my left is my friend Ben, who has his, chips and granola bars, and then to my right is Harrison with, the PB&J sandwich with the crust cut off, and then there's me with my big Tupperware of Persian stew, dark green, lamb, red kidney beans. And I think it was warm that day, so when I opened the lid, the smell just combusted in the whole cafeteria. And I remember very vividly, all the kids, turning around and pointing and laughing, asking if I had rotten eggs for lunch. And when you're 8 years old, you feel the heat rising in your face. And I remember from that day on, for the rest of the year, keeping my lunch in my backpack and waiting until after school to eat. And when I was young, it started out as my fear of being seen as different. And as I grew older, the flinch really grew with me. My fear of rejection, my fear of failure, my fear of making mistakes. And really, when I had started the journey of writing this book, I didn't understand that half of the battle was trying to get the interviews with Bill Gates. The other half was dealing with my internal flinch. And it doesn't matter if you're starting a business, it doesn't matter if you're chasing a dream, it's dealing with your own flinch that's the hardest part of achieving any dream. And what I learned when I went out to do all these interviews is I assumed what made Bill Gates is that he just doesn't have it. But I actually realized the opposite was true. Not only were all of the people who I interviewed tremendously scared in the beginning, they were terrified the whole way through. So it wasn't fearlessness they achieved. It was courage. And while it sounds similar, the difference is critical. Fearlessness is jumping off of the cliff and not thinking about it. That's idiotic. But courage is acknowledging your fear, analyzing the consequences, and then deciding you still care so much about it, you're going to take one thoughtful step forward anyway. And if there's one thing I can ask you guys today when you leave, I'm sure you learned a tremendous amount. You met incredible people the past couple of days, but there's always going to be moments in your business where you're filled with tremendous fear. Fear is a natural part of the entrepreneurial journey. It's a natural part of any business endeavor. And we have this preconceived notion that fear means that there's something wrong with what you're doing. But what I've learned is that not only is it natural, it's an essential part, because only when you acknowledge your fear can you then decide to take one step forward anyways. Now, I've been on tour the past few months, and the book just came out a few months ago, so I'm really happy about it. My mom is finally talking to me again. So I love my mom. She's the reason I am who I am. And, as the book has taken off, there's been this one question that has sort of felt a little weird, and it was, people have been asking, what's your favorite interview? And when I was young, I was like, that's sort of like the question I would ask my mom, who's your favorite kid? She would always say, I love you all equally. And now I know that's not true. Now that I have my interviews, I actually know that's never the truth. You actually have your favorite child, but it's taken me a few months to realize what interview has impacted me the most in hindsight. And it actually wasn't what I was expecting. Because to me, when I had started out, Bill Gates was, my holy grail interview. It was the one that I just assumed, if anybody has the answers, it has to be Bill Gates. Right? What's your name? Naya. Everyone give her some love. Her energy is unbelievable. So I'm thinking exactly what you're thinking. It has to be Bill Gates. But what I was surprised by is, while the interview with Bill unbelievably changed my life, there was only one interview where I can confidently say, I walked in one person and I walked out another. And that was with Quincy Jones. I love the O's over here. This is great. You guys feel it. And with Quincy Jones, I knew what a lot of people know about Quincy Jones. I knew that he's, the best-selling music producer in history. He produced Michael Jackson's Thriller. He produced the best-selling single of all time, We Are the World. I knew that he's been nominated for more Grammys than any music producer in history. I knew he discovered Will Smith and Oprah Winfrey. He's undeniably one of the most important people in the history of entertainment. But when I walked into Quincy Jones's house, I realized I didn't know the half of it. You walk in there, and first of all, he has this round circular living room with golden light coming up the walls. And you walk in there, and I'm sitting down, and this is towards the end of my journey. And I'm sitting down, and in walks in Quincy Jones. He walks in very slowly. He's about 80 years old. And he's in this long velvet blue robe with gold trim at the bottom. And he's like, "Where are you from, my man?" And I'm like, "Oh, hi, Mr. Jones. I'm from Los Angeles." And he's like, "No. I said, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, my family's from Iran." And he's like, "That's what I thought." And then he goes into 30 minutes of stories about his time in Iran, dating a Persian princess, and trying to break the Ayatollah out of prison. And you get sucked into the Quincy Jones vortex, and it is the greatest place on earth. Disney says Disneyland's the greatest place. That's incorrect. It's Quincy Jones's vortex. And you get sucked in there, and 3 hours goes by without noticing. And he's telling stories from the pyramids in Egypt to Rio's Carnival, and my head is spinning. And there were two things Quincy taught me that changed not only what I thought, but how I viewed myself. The first was, and it's really important to understand that I really talked to Quincy after going on the journey. He was one of the last people I spoke to. And he helped me realize that I had spent the past 7 years constantly looking up at the world's richest man, up at the most famous director. And Quincy was trying to show me the value of looking wide, of going to the far corners of the earth and soaking up the knowledge and the wisdom in those cultures, because that's what makes the world so rich. Now, the second thing he taught me changed not only what I thought about myself, but also how I approach business moving forward. And it's what I really want to share with you guys today. So, I'm with Quincy Jones, and you have to understand something else too. With this journey over the past 7 years, these interviews weren't just siloed conversations. Each interaction that I'm having is sort of taking me to my next adventure. So right before Quincy Jones, there was this pretty disastrous situation with Mark Zuckerberg. And, we can share the story for another time, but I was threatened to go to jail. It was a whole disaster. But what's really important to understand is that I walked in to Quincy Jones's house with tremendous amounts of baggage on my shoulder, feeling completely, depleted, completely dejected. So that's sort of my mood when I'm in there, right? And I get into Quincy Jones's house, and this is about halfway through the conversation, and Quincy's telling me the story of when he was just starting out. He was in the music business, and at the time, the music industry was completely run by the mafia. I had no idea, and Quincy's telling me about all these mobsters he had to deal with to get his contracts. So, oh no is right. And I'm sitting there, and Quincy's explaining to me how he went to go get a music publishing deal with this one music executive, and Quincy walks into the office, and there's the music executive, and on the desk, he slides the contract, and it says that Quincy only gets 1% of his royalties. And the executive who's in the mafia says, "Look, you can ask for whatever you want. You're not getting more than 1%. And behind him are all his cronies. So Quincy doesn't have much of an option. And he essentially gets all of his music stolen from him. And Quincy's, smiling and laughing as he's telling me this, and I can feel my body stiffen as he's talking. And Quincy's, laughing, saying, "I'm still getting my shit back." And I'm like, "That's messed up." And he looks at me, and even I didn't understand why I had that outburst. And it's only now, years later, in hindsight, can I see that all of my pent-up anger and baggage from my experience with Mark Zuckerberg was finally coming out. Hearing a story of another young person getting taken advantage of was making me so angry. And it was as if Quincy knew that about me, because he put his hand on me and he goes, "It's okay, man. It's how you learn." And it felt as if my body had been this overinflated tire, and he had just hit the release valve, and all this excess pressure was rushing out. And he looked in my eyes and he said, 99% of people treat their mistakes as their biggest enemy. And that's the worst thing you can do. He explained to me that most people hate their failures. They hate their mistakes, and they treat them as their enemy. But it's only when you treat your mistakes as your friends and you cherish your mistakes can you then learn from them. And only then can you grow. And as great as a lesson that was, I'm still in this Quincy Jones vortex and my head is spinning and the conversation keeps going on. And about, I would say an hour later, we're finally wrapping up this interview. And I'm sitting there and I want to give him a hug, I'm so happy. And he's like, he's being so kind to me. And I'm like, Mr. Jones, I just have to tell you, you really changed who I am and what I want out of my life. And he's like, how's that? And I'm like, you showed me how to be a person of the world. And he's like, that's so great, man. I'm like, yeah, you showed me that you can only grow if you travel. And he goes, no. He's like, no. You only grow when you cherish your mistakes. And it was as if he was going to keep saying that until it finally sunk in. And in that moment, it did. I realized that as great as my interview with Bill Gates was, it was actually my mistakes on my way to get to him that changed me most. And in that moment, I had this epiphany that to this day, I'll never forget. I realized I had spent my entire journey assuming that the opposite of success is failure. But it wasn't until I was sitting there with Quincy Jones that I realized that success and failure are actually the result of the same thing. Trying. And in that moment, I realized that the opposite of success isn't failure. The opposite of success is not trying. And in that moment, I swore to myself that from now on, I would be unattached to succeeding and unattached to failing, and instead, I'll be committed to trying and growing. And that's really what I want to share with you guys back. When you go back home, you go back to your businesses, there's this natural tendency, because we've been raised in this culture where success is applauded, but it wasn't until that meeting with Quincy Jones that I realized if you're attached to success, you'll never be able to grow. Now, what I have been thinking about a lot the past few months, and I'll use this to wrap up because we have a really exciting conversation with Brad in a few minutes. What I'm most excited about, now that the book is done, it's been this 7-year mission. And the whole purpose of this book was I believe that, and I had this idea when I started, that every single person who I spoke to, if they came together, not for press, not to promote anything, but really just to share their best wisdom with the next generation, people can do so much more. And now that the book's out, I've been wondering, and asking myself, what the next step is now that the mission is coming to fruition. And there's this one story that keeps coming to mind. And to me, I don't even remember where I read it. It was somewhere during my research. But to me, it actually symbolizes where I feel, the next chapter is. And when I had started writing the book, I assumed the key to the book would be all the practical lessons in there. Whether it's Tim Ferriss's negotiating secrets or Bill Gates's, sales advice, I assumed that would be the key, but it's only now in hindsight can I understand that the soul of this mission is much deeper. And it's really about possibility. I've learned that you can give someone all the best tools and tactics in the world, and their life can still feel stuck. But if you change what someone believes is possible, they'll never be the same. And there's this anecdote that I read about a teacher who was teaching for Teach for America. She was teaching in Baltimore. You're from Baltimore? Let's give her some love from Baltimore. So she's in Baltimore in a really tough part of town and a really rough school. And she's teaching maybe 3rd or 4th grade. And she realizes these kids need some inspiration. So she decides, today instead of doing our math lesson, we're going to all draw pictures of our biggest dream in life. So the teacher passes out sheets of paper and crayons, and all the kids start coloring. And she notices there's one boy in the back who won't pick up a crayon. The teacher's concerned, and she's watching him, and he has this stoic look on his face. And then after about 30 minutes, his eyes light up, and he starts coloring. So the teacher asks everyone to pass in the papers, and the kids go home, and the teacher's going through them. And she sees that the young boy drew a picture of a pizza delivery man. The teacher was really concerned, so she called the mother that night. The mother, though, said she wasn't surprised. The mother explained that the only male figure in his life who isn't on drugs or in jail is his uncle who delivers pizza. And what I learned from that story is that young people will always reach for the highest branch they believe is possible. They will always reach for the highest branch they believe is possible. So it's our jobs, whether it's schools or family or society at large, to illuminate more branches. And that's the mission moving forward. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. I've had the honor over all these years of interviewing really my heroes and people who I really look up to. But there's one person that I've always wanted to talk to that I'm very excited today with you guys I get to add to the list. You all know Brad Smith. You got to hear from him yesterday. And since this is Brad's final QuickBooks Connect as CEO, let's give him one more round of applause really quickly. I'd like to say a few words before I bring him out. Brad's been recognized like Glassdoor and Fortune and Harvard Business Review, and I'm so excited you're here, man.
You're
you
awesome.
Guys, one more time
you're
for
awesome.
Brad Smith.
No, for Alex.
Brad.
By the way, you have got to get the book. If you haven't gotten the book, you have got to read it. The book plus that was absolutely a home run, and it has changed my life. And I've made it a recommendation for my daughters, and I also chose the third door. And so I'm happy to unpack that at some point if you want to talk about it. But you're awesome, man. You got it.
Guys, one more time for Brad Smith.
I love you, too.
I love him, too. I was talking backstage with someone. I'm like, I think he's a professional nice person. Like, I don't really know what he does at Intuit, but I know he's like a professional nice person. That's like sort of my take from my time with you.
Well, that's what my mom and dad hoped for.
I love that, man. Well, they did a great job.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I've heard that you've been spending, a lot of this year traveling around, going to different town halls and the different offices. And I'm curious, as this is your year transitioning as CEO, if you've had a particularly emotional moment at one of these town halls.
I have. For context, for those who aren't yet friends on Facebook, and again, that invitation is open to everyone, each year from Labor Day until around Thanksgiving, we do a State of the Company tour where we visit all of our locations around the globe. We do town halls, we meet with customers, with pro advisors around the globe, meet with employees, and we share how the company's doing, and we're very candid about what we're doing well, what we have to work on, and then I listen. I hear what are the things people are proud of, things they wish for. And this go around, since it was billed as the farewell tour, employees have surprised me and shared a lot of moments with me that, quite frankly, have moved me in ways I would have never imagined. Things like Fredericksburg, Virginia, who took the time to sponsor my elementary school in my little town of Canova, West Virginia, population 3,500 if you round up. We're number 50 out of 50 on everything. We're only number one in one thing, which is unfortunately opioid addiction. So it's a really, it's a beautiful place with a sad plight. And they sponsor the school teachers there who don't have enough money for their school supplies. And they also sent our 2-year-old technology there so the kids have something to work with. So that moved me. You go to San Diego, they took me back to the future. They picked me up in a DeLorean and escorted me back to TurboTax headquarters where I had the chance to meet my lifelong idol, Gene Simmons from KISS.
Wow.
Yes. And then there was Plano, Texas. Right now, my favorite show is The Greatest Showman about P.T. Barnum. It's a wonderful movie, and if you're not into musicals, I will tell you, Hugh Jackman, the Wolverine, sings, so it's worth it. But they did an amazing sort of rendition of Barnum and Bailey Circus with my wife and surprised me, had my wife there. But really, Alex, the thing that moved me the most, and those were all incredible, was one of our employees approached me in one of our customer success centers and came up afterwards, and she had tears in her eyes. And I said, please, I've cried as much as I can cry. And she said, no, these are tears of happiness. This past year, I was diagnosed with cancer. And it's pretty serious. And she said, and I want to let you know that as I was going through chemo treatments, Intuit employees showed up every day and sat with me. And at night, when I was too sick or too tired to read to my kids, they read bedtime stories. And she said, Brad, it's just like you told us. We are angels with one wing. We do fly by holding on to each other. And for me, that was the most moving moment. It was beautiful. Yeah. By the way, I failed. I did cry when she told me the story, but it was a beautiful story.
I'm going to cry.
Sorry about that.
Whew. You still in contact with her?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's an active employee. She's doing well. She's in remission. She feels really good about her future. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, Intuit's got lots of those stories. As some of our employees get deployed overseas, they show up and they read bedtime stories to the kids, or we record the mother or the father's voice and put it in a Teddy Ruxpin so they can hear the voice every night.
God.
So, yeah, Intuit truly sticks together. It's amazing.
It's beautiful, the family that you've helped cultivate. And what I love, what you had talked about is that you spend time every year going around.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, they always say, hey, it's video chat. You can do that easy with FaceTime. I said, no, you win minds one to many. You win hearts one to one. You've got to go out, sit with the team, meet with the team, spend time with the customers, listen to the stories, share the stories, be vulnerable, ask for help. And that's what I think bonds us.
I love that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I told you, professional, nice person.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable. And, you know, something that I've always been curious about is that your position at Intuit sort of lets you have the pulse on small businesses across America.
Yeah.
And something that I've always wondered is that, and you get them from a different perspective because you're helping them, really, you're the foundation of a lot of how they run their operations and what makes them succeed. And I'm curious, what is one of the most, I'm sure you see a lot of aspects that allow a small business to succeed. What's one of the most overlooked components?
You know, one of the things that we've always admired, and I certainly love about small business owners, is they have a can-do attitude. They're optimists. The thing I never pay attention to is a small business optimism index. Everyone says, oh, small business optimism is up. I said, when is it not up? One out of two fail, and they always are sure it's the other person that's going to be the failure. You know, they're just willing to get up and do it. And they're like Alex Rodriguez yesterday said he had a PhD in failure and a master's in getting up. I think that just defines small businesses.
Yeah.
And so I think the table stakes for any small business owner is grit, perseverance. But I think the overlooked aspect are those that get that it's a team sport. Yes, it's lonely, but you never have to be alone. We already know the stats. If you work with a bookkeeper or an accountant, the odds of success go up 89%. If you share your successes and ask for tips and tricks from others who are in similar situations as you, you will be more successful. And so I think the more that we understand small businesses do need help, but the more small businesses understand that there's a lot of tools and resources and expertise available, I think that's the real overlooked piece that many small business owners don't get. This group does get it.
I love that. You'll never, say it again, you can always be lonely, but you'll never be alone.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, life is a team sport. You know, I had Coach Wooden, UCLA, Coach Wooden once said, a player that makes a team great is worth more than a great player. And small business owners power the world's economy. The bookkeepers, the third-party software developers, companies like Intuit and other small business owners help them do that.
I love that.
And that's the power.
And, you know, you brought up Coach Wooden, and he has a lot of great quotes about mistakes. And you know, we were just talking about Quincy Jones and him yelling at me about my mistakes. I'm curious for you, you know, being a CEO of your caliber naturally comes with the territory making mistakes. I'm curious if you were to look back on your life, you know, 20 years from now, at your time as the CEO, what would be a mistake that stands out, and what lesson did you learn from it that helped you be who you are?
Yeah, Alex, like everybody, I make a ton of mistakes. I make them every day, pretty significant, and thank goodness I work in a company that grades me on a curve. and I was raised by parents who, when I came out, looked at me and said, that's not exactly what we thought we were going to get, but we'll take it. And, they kind of poured their love into me. But I think the mistake that I really made when I look back is I used to think about change as an event. And I've come to understand that change is an ongoing process. And I'll give you the use case. I was running QuickBooks as the general manager at the time, and we knew we were going to have to transform the company and start to lead more into another product line. And I took the management team into the conference room, and for 6 months we planned and we planned and we planned, and employees were trying to guess what we were doing. And then we came out and we unveiled this grand change management plan, and it failed. It was horrible. And I stood up in front of the town hall of employees and I said, look, this is on me. I'm the general manager and it's my mistake and I own this failure. And they said, no shit. But they said, let us give you a tip. The next time you plan to do something like that, why don't you talk to us when you have the question, not when you think you have the answer, and maybe we can help you. And that is the most powerful.
Say that one more time.
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
The next time you are stuck, you're not sure, you have to get to another chapter, start talking to your team when you have the question, not when you have the answer, and engage them in the process. And that has been the way we've led change since. And I think our company has gotten stronger at that capability over time. I certainly have learned an important lesson along the way.
I love that. And, on the topic of sort of looking back, if we were reading your biography, your memoir.
That'd be a short book.
What would this, because this is such an interesting time in your life right now, I'm curious what you would call, the chapter that you're currently in right now. What would that title be?
Wow. I think I would call it Be the Sermon. There is a wonderful poem written by the horse whisperer. If you get the chance, Grant Gollier is the horse whisperer. We've been taking some of our leadership teams through him. And he basically teaches you the old cowboy way of breaking the horse. All you were doing was breaking the horse's spirit. And so the true way to actually partner with a horse is to become a servant leader. So you get down on your knees, you let the horse breathe the same air you are, and eventually the horse bonds with you and hooks on, and you become a partner. And he read a poem to us by Edgar A. Guest. And the poem is basically, I would rather see a sermon than to hear a sermon. And it's not unlike what you talked about, illuminating the branches. I realize as a father of daughters, as someone of privilege that has the chance to sit in a company like this and work with 9,000 incredibly talented people, that what I say and what I do matters, and I want to be the sermon. I want to be the person that they are proud of, that my mom can like on Facebook, and that my daughters want to be.
I love that.
That's it. And my mom does like on Facebook, for those who are Facebook friends. She will post. Now, she types in caps. That doesn't mean she's yelling.
So, on the topic of, let's say, reading your memoir, I would love, one of my favorite things about books, I'm, addicted to reading. I know you read a book a week.
I do.
And one of my favorite things about a lot of books is, they many times start with a quote that sort of sets the tone for the story.
Yeah.
I'd be curious if we're reading your memoir, what that quote would be.
Well, it's one that this team's heard quite a bit, and those inside of Intuit hear almost every day. And it's one that came from my dad. Never mistake kindness for weakness. That you can be humble, you can treat people with the dignity and respect they deserve. Everyone was born with greatness inside of them. And you can be competitive, you can be strong when you need to be, you can be tough when you have to be, but you should always be kind. And so backstage, I have one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten in my life. A young lady who supported us for years, Bridget, just said to me, you remind me of the Mr. Rogers of business. That would be my aspiration. And by the way, since I'm into movies as well, if you haven't seen the documentary,
I was about to
Welcome
say
to My
that.
Neighborhood, it is one of the most heartwarming documentaries on Mr. Rogers. And for those who are millennials,
So
you will like them.
It's so good.
Oh, it's incredible.
I was
absolutely incredible.
crying while I was watching it.
Yeah, me too. I'm crying talking about it.
Oh my God, you got
Yeah.
called Mr. Rogers?
Yeah,
That's like the
Mr.
highest thing
You know
anyone
what?
could say.
She was grading me on a curve, but I took it and ran with it.
You know, because this is the transition year,
Yeah.
I sort of want to end this conversation talking about how you view finding a successor. You know, what you're looking for and really what's important to you in making a smooth transition in the year to come.
Yeah. You know, succession planning for all of us, whether we're running our own businesses or we have the chance to serve in a position I have that was founded by someone much more talented than me, it's a privilege and it's a responsibility to make sure that you leave it better than you found it, but more importantly, you find someone more talented than you to take it to the next level. And for me, the test is this someone I would want to work for? And from the day I met this guy, I've always wanted to work for him. Sasan Goodarzi is a strategic thinker. He's operationally rigorous. He's incredibly inspirational. He's got a heart of gold. He has a story not unlike yours. And when you hear his story and you see what he does and the way he treats people and the businesses he builds, you just want to be around him. And so for me, the characteristics I was looking for was someone who was intellectually curious, who had grit, and at the end of the day was humble. And when I see Sasan Goodarzi, he has more questions than answers. He realizes that those answers will come from people other than him, and he never says never. He never gives up. So I am 110% confident that someone more capable than me is taking over this company, and I am going to hold my stock for the 7 years I'm allowed to hold it, and I am going to enjoy this ride, and I can't wait to serve him as the chairman of this board.
I love that. Brad Smith, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you, brother.
unbelievable.
Thank you. You're supposed to go this way?
And let's bring on a special guest. Why don't we have Sasan come on out?
Great talk. Very nice.
This is when I officially exit stage right.
No, you're gonna stay here for a minute. So now you got a glimpse into Brad Smith, a small glimpse. But I'll tell you, Brad is the most legendary leader I have ever personally worked for and with. He inspired for 11 years 9,000 people across the company, and he touched many more hearts than the 9,000 folks that are at Intuit today. Brad, you taught us how to love, you taught us how to care, and you taught us how to reinvent ourselves every single day. And you know, he only told you guys a few stories. If you are friends with him on Facebook, you will have been blown away what employees organically did for this guy. And they did it because he touched their heart and he touched their family. And there is no one that will ever be part of this company that we will ever admire as much as you, Brad. So please, another round. I love you, man. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
I love you.
Show him how it's done.
Show him how it's done.
Thanks.
Well, that was the close. First of all, I can't thank you all enough for taking several days out of your schedule to be a part of our 5th QuickBooks Connect. You know, as I shared with you yesterday, what is incredible about you is that every single one of you are huge dreamers. Your grit is incredible. Your passion is incredible. And that's why the theme of QuickBooks Connect was about anything is possible. So on your way out, there's this book that each of you are going to get. It's only a few pages, but this book has quotes from some of the most inspirational folks that have lived the quotes. and one of them being by the very guy that you just experienced. So we want you to have this book because it's just always great to look at what people have lived. But I would tell you the most important part of the book will be this last page. It's not just about inspiration, it's about perspiration. It's about what you are going to do. It's easy to listen to others and be inspired. You inspire us every single day. But it is about what you are going to go do. So on this last page, there's a question for you. And the question is, what will you do to prove in 2019 that anything is possible? And one of the things Brad has taught us, by the way, in the company is to make it public. So on your way home, in the next 24 hours, step back and reflect on you, who you are, hopefully what has changed as you've experienced the last 3 days here, and write down what you will do to prove that anything is possible in 2019. And then tweet it. Tweet it, hashtag QuickBooks Connect, and inspire not only yourself, but the many that are here and the many that will see it. We love you. We're behind you. Thank you for everything that you've done in the last 3 days connecting with one another, and we can't wait to see you next year. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you.